In late summer 1944, at 6:15 a.m., tension was palpable at observation post 4 Pardal in France. The crumpled morning report, tossed onto a table, puzzled the German technical officers of the 155th Anti-Aircraft Regiment West. The presented mathematical calculations contradicted the laws of ballistics taught at Luftwaffe academies across Germany. An incredible 82% of destroyed targets called all known principles into question. This simply cannot be, was the prevailing sentiment. Through the binoculars of their field telescopes, German observers witnessed a scene that refuted all assurances from their intelligence services about Allied air defense capabilities. V-1 flying bombs, launched toward London in the pre-dawn gloom, were being destroyed with astonishing effectiveness. They weren't being intercepted by fighters performing risky maneuvers, nor were they getting entangled in barrage balloon cables. They were falling victim to anti-aircraft fire over the coastal strip. Shells were exploding with incredible precision near the missiles, causing them to detonate without a direct hit. At the headquarters of the 155th Anti-Aircraft Regiment West, located in Château d'Hautot, Oberst Max Wachtel, commander of the entire V-1 operation, received these reports with growing alarm. The situation demanded immediate analysis and action. During the German V-1 flying bomb campaign, Allied defensive forces demonstrated astonishing effectiveness. While coastal artillery batteries destroyed only 17% of these pilotless aircraft in June, by the end of August, this figure had soared to an impressive 74%. On one day in the last week of August, anti-aircraft gunners managed to shoot down an incredible 82% of approaching V-1s. This phenomenal increase in effectiveness was a profound technological shock for German weapons scientists, the most significant of the entire war. Neither Wachtel nor his colleagues suspected they were witnessing the deployment of one of the Allies' most closely guarded secrets, a technology so advanced that its protection rivaled the secrecy of the Manhattan Project for the atomic bomb. This was the proximity fuse, or variable time VT fuse, as the Allies codenamed it. This device, with unprecedented accuracy, was destroying Hitler's vengeance weapon, demonstrating capabilities that German physicists believed were impossible. This story began 10 weeks before the described events on June 13, 1944, exactly 1 week after the Allied D-Day landings in Normandy. In retaliation for the invasion, Hitler unleashed his long-anticipated vengeance weapon, Vergeltungswaffe, against London. Early on June 13 at 4:25 a.m., the first V-1 struck the British capital, landing on Grove Road in the Bow district. The explosion destroyed a railway bridge and nearby homes, killing 6 people, injuring 30, and leaving 200 residents homeless. Within the depths of German design bureaus, a sinister product of military engineering was taking shape. An unmanned aerial vehicle packed with 850 kilograms, weighing 874 pounds, of Amatol explosive. The heart of this deadly device was an Argus S190-014 pulse jet engine, enabling speeds of up to 640 km/h and 400 Nm/h. This was the world's first operational cruise missile on which the German High Command pinned its hopes of crushing Great Britain. Major Walter Dornberger, who led the V-weapons program at Peenemünde, predicted the coming terror with mathematical precision. Even with a modest 25% success rate, V-1s would unleash more explosive power on London than the entire Blitz of 1940 during 1941. Moreover, the production cost of each missile was only about 5,000 Reichsmarks, a negligible sum compared to the expense of a manned bomber, not to mention the risk to its crew, At the Army Research Center in Peenemünde, Third Reich scientists were in a state of euphoria. They had developed advanced rocket technology, operational jet aircraft, and were now mass-producing the world's first cruise missile. Dr. Robert Lucer, creator of the V-1s guidance system, assured everyone that interception of this flying bomb by the Allies was virtually impossible. The missile traveled at 640 km north, 400 mm at various altitudes from 600 to 2700 meters, 2,000 to 9,000 feet. British fighters needed speeds exceeding 650 km/h to 400 mph for interception. To destroy it, pilots had to close to within 200 meters, up to 650 feet, exposing themselves to mortal danger from the explosion. As for anti-aircraft fire, the probability of a direct hit on such a small and fast target was estimated at less than 1 in 10,000 rounds fired. These were not empty words of propaganda, but sober calculations of ballistic science. Military science faced a challenge. Traditional shells with timed fuses required pinpoint accuracy in trajectory, prediction, complex calculations, manual adjustments, and flawless synchronization of all elements. Artillerymen, with mere seconds, about 30, from the moment a V-1 missile was detected until its destruction, had to operate with maximum efficiency. Max Wachtel, commander of the 145th Anti-Aircraft Regiment West, was keenly aware of all the shortcomings of the existing air defense system. During the campaign, Germany launched 9,521 V-1 missiles against England from ground installations, with the total number of missiles launched throughout the war reaching approximately 25,000. Soon after the initial launches, German intelligence raised the alarm. British air defenses were showing an astonishing ability to adapt. By the end of June, the interception rate of enemy missiles had risen from 10% to 24%, which, while exceeding expectations, was still explainable. However, in July, the situation began to defy logic. German technical experts analyzing the effectiveness of air defense noted that British anti-aircraft guns were destroying V-1s with an abnormally low expenditure of ammunition. Observers on the French coast reported strange occurrences. V-1 missiles flying towards England suddenly found themselves engulfed in a dense ring of anti-aircraft shell bursts and fell, even though the explosions occurred at a considerable distance from them, ruling out the possibility of a direct hit. Unbeknownst to German intelligence, the Allies were already making extensive use of proximity fuses, transforming even inaccurate shots into deadly hits. Since January 1943, in the Pacific, the American cruiser USS Helena had demonstrated the effectiveness of this technology, destroying Japanese bombers with shells that detonated in close proximity to their targets. This Allied triumph was a consequence of a massive failure in German intelligence. Despite the Oslo report of November 1939 mentioning research into radio fuses, German scientists dismissively rejected this information, considering it disinformation. Germany, keen not to fall behind, also attempted to develop similar technology. Over 30 different designs were considered, but none reached the stage of practical application. German engineers, facing immense difficulties, erroneously concluded that proximity fuses were impossible to create. Miniaturizing transceivers for artillery shells, creating vacuum tubes capable of withstanding colossal 20,000 G-forces, developing batteries that remained functional after years of storage, and organizing mass production. All these tasks seemed insurmountable. Meanwhile, by August 1944, American factories were already producing 40,000 VT fuses daily. It was in the last week of August 1944 that the proximity fuse reached the peak of its effectiveness, demonstrating its decisive role in the war. During World War II, Great Britain radically overhauled its air defense system to effectively counter the threat of German V-1 flying bombs. A key element of this modernization was the use of the American SCR-5804 radar, which provided automatic target tracking. But an even more significant innovation was the deployment of shells equipped with VT proximity fuses, specially modified for destroying V-1s. To create a formidable defensive line, the Royal Artillery and Royal Air Force units were redeployed from positions in the North Downs to the south coast. This allowed for the formation of a dense belt of artillery guns ready to meet the enemy. Positioning the guns along the coast also had strategic significance. Unexploded shells fell into the sea, preventing their capture and study by German specialists. When V-1 flying bombs intruded into the airspace over the English coast, they immediately entered a zone of intense fire. Here, advanced technology triumphed over statistical probability. SCR-584 radars automatically acquired enemy targets, calculated optimal interception trajectories, and transmitted precise data for gun aiming. The proximity fuses, developed by Sylvania Electric and Western Electric, contained miniature radio transmitters based on vacuum tubes. As soon as a reflected signal indicated critical proximity to the target, special Theratron switches activated the detonators, rupturing the V-1's casing with a shower of steel fragments. On one day in late August, coastal batteries managed to destroy an impressive 82% of approaching V-1s, a result that German engineers considered impossible according to the laws of physics. Panic reigned at German headquarters after receiving data that 82% of missiles were being intercepted by the enemy. Wachtel, one of the leaders, suspected sabotage. Despite urgent inspections, no defects were found in the missiles. Test launches over Germany confirmed their proper functioning. The problem arose exclusively when encountering the British defense system. German specialists concluded that the British had developed advanced anti-aircraft systems, but they could not ascertain their specific features without capturing samples. German forces attempted various tactical approaches. They altered flight altitudes, increased the number of missiles in a salvo, conducted night launches, and exploited weather conditions to their advantage. However, all efforts proved futile. The destruction rate remained exceptionally high. Scientists at Peenemünde reached a disheartening conclusion. If the Allies had developed proximity fuses, they had achieved a breakthrough that Germany deemed impossible. Germany exerted maximum effort to uncover the secret, but all attempts were unsuccessful. The security of the proximity fuse project was maintained at the highest level. Production was distributed among 110 factories, where each worker performed only a narrow task. Even the name variable time fuse was deliberately deceptive, creating the impression of a conventional timed fuse rather than a proximity sensor. By 1944, the entire American electronics industry had been mobilized for fuse production. Paris. By the end of the war, 22 million proximity fuses had been produced at a cost of over $1 billion in 1940s dollars. During World War II, American industry demonstrated impressive power, especially in the production of high-tech devices. Crossley Corporation, a leader in this field, produced over 5 million fuses, accounting for about a quarter of the total national output. These figures revealed a significant disparity in industrial capabilities between the United States and Germany. While Germany struggled with V-1 missile production relying on forced labor, America managed to retool its electronics industry for mass production of fuses. Production peaked at 40,000 units per day. Concurrently, the cost per fuse plummeted from 732 in 1942 to 18 by 1945. Crossley, formerly specializing in radios and refrigerators, hired 10,000 workers and produced 16,000 fuses daily during peak production. Sylvania Electric also made a significant contribution, dedicating its entire vacuum tube research department to developing reliable components for the fuses. The company produced 400,000 miniature tubes daily, accounting for 95% of all those used in these devices. The contrast with Germany was striking. While German weapons production remained manual and limited, America established mass production of revolutionary technologies on an unprecedented scale. Having ramped up colossal production, American industry was manufacturing more proximity fuse monthly than Germany managed to produce V-1 missiles throughout the entire war. The proximity fuse was a triumph of engineering ingenuity. This miniature device had to withstand colossal stresses, being fired from a gun, accelerating at 20,000 Gs, rotating at 25,000 revolutions per minute, and enduring abrupt temperature changes. Sylvania engineers developed special miniature vacuum tubes based on hearing aid designs and reinforced them to operate in extreme conditions. Batteries, capable of remaining in sleep mode for years, activated instantly when required. The fuse itself was a miniature radio station, continuously transmitting signals. As soon as reflected waves indicated proximity to a large object, the fuse's circuit initiated detonation. This seemingly simple concept required solving extremely complex technical challenges that German engineers considered insurmountable. Quality control was unprecedentedly strict. Every fuse underwent numerous tests. Random samples were test-fired from special guns. A defect rate not exceeding 2% attested to the outstanding precision of mass production. By September 1944, the V-1 offensive was virtually halted. Of the 9 521 V-1 missiles launched against Great Britain from ground positions, only 2,515 reached London, claiming the lives of 6,184 civilians and injuring 17,181. Despite the tragic losses incurred, it should be noted that they represented only a fraction of what the German command had planned. According to General Frederick Pyle, who commanded air defenses, the absence of proximity fuses would have resulted in V-1 casualties increasing 4 to 5-fold. Essentially, the proximity fuse averted catastrophic destruction in London. In response, Germany shifted to night launches and developed the V-2 missile, whose speed made interception impossible. However, even these desperate measures failed to have a significant strategic impact. The V-1 program proved to be a costly failure, consuming resources desperately needed elsewhere. German intelligence's inability to detect and understand the operating principles of proximity fuses became one of the most serious errors in intelligence history. Despite an extensive network of agents and a high level of technical expertise, the Germans never truly grasped what they were up against. The proximity fuse development program remained a top secret throughout the war. Not a single intact proximity fuse fell into the hands of German specialists during the V-1 campaign. Interestingly, during the Battle of the Bulge, German forces captured an American ammunition depot containing proximity fuses, but they failed to identify them. Their preconception about the impossibility of such devices prevented them from seeing the obvious evidence right before their eyes. Following Germany's unconditional surrender, Allied forces conducted a series of interrogations that revealed the astonishing ignorance of German military personnel regarding the existence and operating principles of proximity fuses. Oberst Max Wachtel, a high-ranking German officer, confessed to Allied officers that they had suspected the enemy possessed more advanced radar systems or faster fuses, but they could not even imagine the existence of self-thinking shells. When captured American VT fuses were demonstrated to German scientists, they expressed extreme disbelief, unable to comprehend how vacuum tubes could withstand colossal G-forces upon firing, how batteries maintain functionality, and how circuits continue to operate under such extreme conditions. They estimated Germany's technological lag behind American advancements in this area to be at least 10 years. Dr. Merle Tuve, head of proximity fuse development at the Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Laboratory, later noted that the project's success was due to close and systematic cooperation among scientists, engineers, and production workers, an approach that proved unattainable for totalitarian regimes. The proximity fuse became a vivid testament to the fact that the outcome of World War II was determined not only on battlefields, but also in scientific laboratories and industrial plants. While Germany strived to create exotic wonder weapons, America bet on multiplicative technologies aimed at enhancing the effectiveness of existing armaments. The proximity fuse increased the effectiveness of each anti-aircraft gun 5 to 10-fold. U.S. Secretary of the Navy James Forrestal emphasized, "The proximity fuse paved our way to Japan." Without the protection this ingenious device afforded our surface fleet, our westward advance would not have been as swift, and our losses in men and ships would have been immeasurably higher. World War II exposed profound differences in approaches to warfare. For instance, the German V-1 missile program relied on forced labor. While tens of thousands of concentration camp prisoners met their deaths in underground factories producing this vengeance weapon, American workers, driven by patriotic fervor and financial incentives, voluntarily dedicated themselves to overtime. At the Sylvania plant in Ipswich, over 5,000 women worked 2 12-hour shifts, creating complex components. Only after the war's end did they learn the truth about their contribution to saving London from the deadly terror weapon developed by Hitler's Germany. Keeping the operating principle of the proximity fuse a secret was a top priority. British anti-aircraft crews successfully hitting V-1s were unaware of the secret behind their shell's effectiveness. A special accounting and storage protocol was established for these munitions. Every shell fired at an enemy missile was strictly logged. Unexploded ordnance was immediately removed from circulation. Allied warships patrolled the English Channel to prevent faulty munitions from falling into enemy hands. However, such strict secrecy came with a tragic cost. Allied ground forces could not use artillery equipped with proximity fuses until December 1944. Thousands of soldiers became casualties of this restriction, driven by fears of revealing the technology. Nevertheless, the use of proximity fuses against V-1s was deemed justified, as London's survival during the German offensive held strategic importance. Despite colossal resource expenditure, the German V-1 program did not significantly influence the war's outcome. The launch of approximately 25,000 V-1 missiles cost millions of Reichsmarks and diverted resources desperately needed for fighter aircraft and anti-tank weapons production, even as the fronts were closing in. The use of slave labor in the V-1 program added a moral dimension to its failure. Ultimately, the proximity fuse proved more effective than weapons forged at the cost of human suffering, a truth that only became evident after the war's conclusion. The proximity fuse symbolized a transformation in warfare, where victory was achieved through engineering solutions and manufacturing capabilities, rather than merely the superiority of individual weapons. It clearly demonstrated that modern warfare is a contest of industrial systems, not just military might. The proximity fuse played a crucial role in defending the Pacific Fleet's ships and ensuring Japan's defeat, but before that it saved London. German engineers observing the fall of their V-1 rockets could never understand the reason for their failure. The technology that defeated them was beyond their scientific comprehension. The transformation brought about by proximity fuses was astonishing. Before their introduction, an average of 2,500 heavy anti-aircraft shells were required to destroy a single V-1 rocket. With the advent of proximity fuses, this number dropped to just 100 shells. The intercept rate for anti-aircraft defenses soared from 17% to 82% in only 10 weeks. This was made possible not by heroism or improved soldier training, but by the mass production of advanced technology on a scale that Germany could neither replicate nor even comprehend. During World War II, the United States channeled immense efforts into developing its electronics industry, mobilizing over 80,000 specialists and investing more than $1 billion to produce 22 million proximity fuses. This technological achievement was declassified in September 1945 and, according to military estimates, was second in significance only to the atomic bomb. For German scientists who had struggled with the V-1's development, this news was a bitter revelation, demonstrating an industrial superiority they could not even imagine. Post-war interviews revealed their shock, as they had considered the V-1 to be the pinnacle of weapons technology. The realization that their advanced weapon had been neutralized by the mass production of electronic devices costing less than $20 each was a devastating blow. They were defeated not by soldiers, but by assembly lines. The proximity fuse technology spurred the development of modern air defense systems, radar altimeters, and electronic warfare (EW) countermeasures. For former German weapons scientists, this served as a constant reminder of their wartime short-sightedness. The proximity fuse clearly demonstrated that in modern warfare, the mass production of effective technologies is more significant than the creation of single perfect weapons. Germany had focused on developing outstanding but limited production armaments, while America established the production of millions of effective weapons. On a fateful day in late summer 1944, when proximity fuses mathematically destroyed 82% of German V-1 cruise missiles, the very essence of warfare underwent irreversible changes. The German forces, who had launched their vengeance weapon into battle, could never grasp the nature of the invisible technology that doomed their efforts to failure. They meticulously adhered to their known principles, developing advanced weapon prototypes, training elite units, and making groundbreaking discoveries. However, they were ultimately defeated by mass-produced electronics, which they were powerless to overcome. The proximity fuse became a shield that saved London from imminent destruction, with thousands of precise explosions, each controlled by technology that seemed unattainable to German science. It was a triumph of democratic industrial power over totalitarian engineering, the victory of mass production over bespoke perfection, and the proliferation of simple, effective solutions over complex and costly wonder weapons. The Germans had no idea what was striking their V-1s, which fell like stones from the sky, struck down by a secret they could not decipher, and an industrial might they could not match. The proximity fuse turned Hitler's vengeance weapon into London's salvation, and the Germans never understood how or why this happened until the realization became meaningless. Ultimately, America's greatest victory was won not on battlefields, but in factory workshops, where millions of workers, many of them women, often unaware of precisely what they were producing, created tiny electronic devices that saved a city and forever altered the course of the war. The 82% intercept rate achieved by late August 1944 was irrefutable proof that in modern warfare, industrial potential can crush any wonder weapon, no matter how ingenious. The proximity fuse was not merely a weapon, it was the embodiment of how a democratic society's ability to mobilize science and industry can overcome even the most sophisticated genius of tyranny. And the Germans, watching their perfect weapon collapse in the skies, never grasped why they had already lost a war in which their leaders had assured them of inevitable victory.